everyone, and welcome back to the Colour Cave, where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem, and it's been a wee while, longer than I had anticipated, but we are back in Worlds Within Worlds by Kerby Rosannas, and we're coming back to our, what I've been calling the shoe shop pages here, and today we are going to be working on the shoe. Now this actually follows on quite nicely from the last video because we're going to be using very similar colours to what we've used before. In this instance it is the Castle Arts gold pencils, so this is their oil-based pencils, which I like very much. So the colours I'm going to start with are these leaf colours that we used for the treetops here, so just a wee reminder for you there. I'll pop them up on the screen just now. So using a similar technique and sort of theory as before as well, I'm going to use the darker colours for the shadow areas, but also for the actual canvas, so like the background on the shoe. I did kind of contemplate whether to make these completely different colours, but we're going to have lots of interest in these areas here that are actually like the parts of the shop, if you like. We're going to use pops of colour there, so I thought this would work best to fit in kind of with what we've got already. So that's my theory and I'm sticking to it. Whether it looks good or not, you guys can be the judge. So on the shoe here there is this flower pattern, and I'm going to take that as leaves. So we'll use some of these sort of lighter and brighter colours for the actual pattern, but for the background of the canvas we're going to stick with these colours here. So for a base for that I would like to use the magenta. That seemed to be quite a favourite. And I'm going to start in this tongue area here. Most of these areas are in shadow. They're below the laces, and although there's some areas where there's some exposure, the bulk of it's going to be pretty dark. So that is where we're going to start. So I'm taking this magenta and I'm just going to do my nice light layer, and I'm going to cover all the parts of the shoe that I want to work on just now. I'm a great fan, as you know, of breaking things down into sections. It just makes it more manageable and it gives you something to focus on. You can also use these areas as the sort of guinea pig areas as well. See if you're a wee bit unsure about your colour combinations or whatever. This is a great way to sort of figure it out, as it were. I'm not sure if that's a shoelace there. That looks as if it should be. We're going to keep it dark anyway. And we'll bring this up here. So the tongue area in particular is in the light. Back to the discussion about the lanterns and all the rest of it, but we don't need to focus too hard on that because we've got these signposts from our laces, so we know where the light areas are without having to try and figure it out as we go along. We've done the legwork on that already, so that's quite helpful. So let's go for that just now. So I think the walnut brown might just be a bit, I don't want it to be drab, or the Scottish word we would use is dreich. You know, I don't want it to be really dark and unexciting. So the darkest colour, which is this walnut brown, I'm really only wanting to use that in the darkest of areas. So where the hatching's quite heavy, and I'm just using that as my sort of indicator, if you like. So there's a couple of patches there, and maybe in these areas here, along that edge a little bit. And then I can go in with the henna brown. This is a lovely warm colour. Again, I'm keeping the layers quite light just now until I figure out how dark I actually want that part to be. Let's get zoomed in a little bit now. So I'm really thinking that the magenta, to use it in its purest form, so to speak, would really only be these exposed areas, like here and on the tongue. And the rest I feel would be a combination of the henna and the magenta in varying shapes and forms. But again, we can play it by eye. Starting to even up the colour a little bit as well. That first layer, I'm very unfussy about it. I don't care if it's patchy or whatever, because we're going to build up so many subsequent layers anyway. See, now I feel like this should be a lot darker, and we've got some creases and things to work with here, so I'll maybe just pop in a little bit just now. We can work on that in a bit more detail. We'll maybe take that as a separate section up here. So back to my magenta now. So here, that's a really good place where I think that there would definitely be more of that. Sometimes it's nice to start in the parts that you're really sure about, you know, rather than taking a sort of methodical approach. I sometimes like that, especially if I'm not entirely sure what combination of pencils I'm using, or in what, you know, in what capacity and what quantities. So yeah, I think that's quite nice there. I think this should be more henna than magenta. And see now I feel that this is very samey to this part, so I'm going to add in some walnut brown. So this is really just about judgment, I think, and your preferences to what you think it should look like. Because obviously, you know, we kind of follow the rules here sometimes, but other times it's just a case of, well, I don't like the way that looks, so let's change it. Again, down in here. Definitely more henna. The main objective is to make sure this colour is lovely and rich. We really want the colours to be luscious, and we don't want a sort of, you know, we're not going for a delicate washed out kind of image here. We want to show all the nice autumnal colours, so the colours need to be quite strong, regardless of whether they're dark or light. So if this is going to be really dark in here, get some more walnut on the go there. And again, I think we'll stick with this. That's maybe exaggerated, but I just think that that magenta should really be the main character there. And we'll take the henna for the hatched area again. I'm going to build up the walnut brown down in this bottom part here. And again, the magenta maybe just on that very top edge where there's no hatching. Follow the instructions. I often wonder if colouring book artists get a bit peeved if they see, you know, videos like this and people colour their images against what their original intention was. Like, I often wonder if that annoys them. Like, oh, put that hatch in there for a reason, and then people like me just blatantly ignore it and do their own thing. I think we must ask some colouring book artists if that's the case, because I would be really interested to find out the answer to that. Okay, let's go up here now. We'll do these parts. I'm quite happy with that. That looks pretty good. I'm very happy with the richness of colours, and this looks gorgeous against the green. I'm sure you'll agree with that. So I think I might have a wee pop of magenta here. You know, maybe the light's catching just a section of that, especially if it's sitting out the way the same as the lace. See, I'm still not convinced that that isn't a lace, but it's too late now, so, you know. I'm sure it'll look okay though. So this is the henna now. I'm just going to start building that up in there to start covering off most of that area. And see now I feel like, yes, we do need walnut brown. So we're going to grab that. That's tucked away in there as well, so let's make that a bit darker too. Okay, so this part is blatantly in the light. So let's take our magenta. And this is maybe the only area where the magenta isn't going to be as rich as, say, for example, down here. But again, that is entirely up to you what you feel like doing. So I'm just going to build up another layer of magenta here. Just take my time and work my way over the whole area. Okay, so now we want to think about the creases. And again, I'm just sticking with the same pencil, but let's follow Kerby's lines and just add in a bit. It doesn't have to be very precise, but we want to show the folds of where, you know, the tongue's kind of scrunched up when the laces have been pulled. Show that off quite nicely. And I feel that this is going to start to get darker as it curves away. And we talked a little bit about this before when we were doing the laces, you know, it's not only is it curving away, it's curving away that way and this way, but it's tucking in behind this part of the shoe as well. So maybe just another light layer of magenta there, and then we can start to work in a little bit of the henna. So let's jump to that henna pencil now. And I'd like to sharpen this up. I want to get a bit of a pointy point because I do want some of these lines to be a bit more crisp. So alongside the lines I've just done with the magenta, and I'm going to put a bit more henna in at the bottom here, especially on this left hand side. Again, this hatched area here. And back to my magenta now. Now down here where it's quite close to the light source, I'm probably going to leave that as it is, just to show that there's a little bit of light, you know, that's reflecting directly. It's in quite close proximity there, so maybe just that little bit there, this tiny little section here. We'll see how that looks. It might look a bit odd, but we can always fill it in if we don't like it. And again, much richer colour over this side. I feel as if it's kind of washed my darker lines out though, so I'm going to go back to the henna now and just kind of reiterate them. Put them back in. So quite aggressive hand movements, more like a flicky motion, but I'm pressing quite hard as well. This just reminds me of red wine for some reason. Not a red wine drinker, but there you go. Okay, so if we zoom out now, so you can see that because we've kept these colours nice and rich, we're in contention, you know, both areas are standing out, and because we've got this contrast of the light from the lanterns in the background, it's making it look really good. It's just like, oh, num 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 num. So we're going to pick our way around the rest of the canvas part of the shoe now. Again, same rules, same sort of principles, but we're going to try and avoid these flower shapes as well. So when you've got a big area, and it's quite a complicated shape as well, so we'll just do it a section at a time. This poor magenta pencil's taking an absolute beating. Now, I feel like that this is piping round the shoe, but interestingly, there's this part here where the pattern actually goes over that area, which kind of screws things up for me a wee bit, honestly. So I don't quite know what I'm going to do with that, so I'm just going to leave it alone just now. And I'm just going to take this little area here first and just sort of decipher what belongs where. And we'll just keep working our way up here. Now, I think that might be a bit of shoe in there. So here is a really good place to stop. I was talking in earlier videos about sensible places to stop if you're going to break things up into sections, and that's a perfect place, and we can deal with that side in just a bit. Okay, so two thoughts are popping into my head just now, and I think that we'll keep this as part of the fabric. So this is maybe the start of the stitch, like the fold over part of the fabric, and that this part here on the very top is the sort of piping or the edging strip or whatever the proper name for it is. I know nothing about sewing and textiles, so I think that's what we'll do. So I'm going to put some magenta on this part here, and I'm going to leave that piping or whatever you want to call it white, and I'm going to do the same with the eyelets as well round the lace. Yeah, I think that makes more sense. I feel like this is just a stitched area as well. I don't think that's piping either. So again, I'll just run my magenta pencil over that quickly just to remind myself, because I can guarantee you in 15 minutes I'll have forgotten about it. I'll just work around these wee shutters. And again, this sign here is a great place to stop. Okay, so I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up again so we can use the darker colours. I don't really want to use the walnut brown at this point, the darkest brown. So I'm going to take the henna and I'm going to use that on this very bottom layer first. So I'm putting a full layer of that down on this bottom section of the shoe, just a very light layer though. I kind of just want it to tint the magenta pencil rather than, you know, blend them to create a new colour sort of thing. So kind of to make like a muddier magenta. Oh dear. I'm not really selling it to you. And we can maybe work in a bit more of the magenta in these hatched areas down the bottom here. You know, right down at the very bottom. Okay, I'm going to go back to my magenta pencil now, and I'm going to put a bit more of a confident layer down. Start to smooth it out a little bit. Start to build that colour up. Okay, so that we get this sort of stitched area to stand out, I'm going to put a really sharp point on my henna. And then we're just going to run that along the underside there. So again, pressing quite hard. Oh, missed a little patch in there. Sneaky. You see that? Oh. And with this henna now, I'm just going to go into the hatched areas. And I don't feel like this has to be very accurate or, you know, particularly fancy. I just want to acknowledge that that has been put in there by Mr. Rosanna's. And again though, I think like underneath the windowsill edges might be a place to add in a little bit of this. Alright, and now I'm going to go back to my magenta. I'm not too worried about light and shadow here. We talked about this sign and the light projected mostly like towards the viewer. So this might actually be in shadow, you know, the actual part of the shoe. So I can still see my pencil line though. So we'll deal with that later, but I think for the purposes of what we need right now, I don't think we need to be worrying about that too much, honestly. Okay, lovely jubbly. Okay, so you can see where we're at with that. I'm going to do exactly the same thing for this strip here, so I will speed this part up and we'll see what it looks like and see what adjustments we need to make after that. Okay, dokie, that's looking a bit more like it. So what I've found now is that because we've really sort of made this as rich as possible, this seam here actually looks white. So I think what I would like to do is take a paler pink. There's nothing that really matches up with the magenta. If I just show you our colour chart here. So this is the magenta down here, and it really starts the lightest of these more berry reddy, pinky, purpley colours. So I think if we just pick a lighter colour, I think the azalea pink might be a bit much, but I was thinking if we grab the grenadine, that's okay, that might work. Yeah. It's not actually as far away from the magenta as I thought it was going to be. And oh, that's blended in nicely too. Okay. Okay. I'll take a bit of that. Yeah, so I was just going to use that on this seam here because I want this to still be part of the fabric of the shoe. Maybe not press too heavily. It is rather pink. That's subtle, isn't it? That is subtle. Okay, I'm gonna go with that. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So I just want to work my way up and round now and finish off the canvas part. There is this section in here. I'm going to leave that and tackle that in with the door, and I'll kind of decide what I'm doing with that there. But really I was thinking more about this section here, and then down obviously around this little heel part too. And then we'll take a look at it as a bigger picture. I've got the feeling that I want to add in a bit of the walnut brown now, just because it looks quite samey in places, but we shall see how we go. So along here, there's no flowers at all, so we'll just go with our magenta again first. You will be sick of me saying the word magenta by the end of this. There's a lot of magenta. This poor pencil is getting shorter and shorter. But that's what they're there for. They're there to get used. So let's get a light layer down here. Just get this all the way along. The thing that's really satisfying about this is when we do this, it makes the other areas really pop out. So it's making this structure here pop out. And that, for me, that's all part of like recognizing what belongs to what. Because sometimes it just looks like a massive black and white, honestly. So we'll pop that all the way down there. And that disappears off in behind there. And then pops back out here. There we go. So again, same thing again. Just a very light brush of the henna over the top of it. Trying to avoid that top part, so I will make that a wee bit lighter, I think. Now naturally this back part here is going to be a lot darker. Let's say we'll deal with that in due course. This top edge though is kind of middle ground. It's a bit kind of no man's land, so I would be inclined, if we think about the shadow of the tree as well, I know this is not only going to the left, but it's getting pushed, you know, into the background as if the branches are further away in that direction. But I want to kind of apply the same principle here, and we'll use a lot more brown in this left hand side, because not only is it the furthest point from the light source there, but it's also the light's being blocked because this structure clearly sits out from the side of the shoe. So just things to consider. Again, not something that you necessarily have to have in, you know, included in what you're doing, but if you want to take advantage of those observations, I'm also going to colour in this part in here. Let's see what I'm doing. I'm also going to colour in this part in here. Just make that a bit darker. Okay, so I'm going to grab my magenta now. So once we've got all the canvas covered, we're going to tweak things a little bit. We'll just add a few bits and bobs in. But let's get this going just now. I've got my henna pencil here. All right, lovely. So I think we'll go a little bit heavier with the henna here, and where the hatched areas are, I will make that walnut brown. Again, just thinking about this side being the dark side, so to speak. Just going to do this bottom part as well while I'm here. So I'm going to stick a layer of henna brown down and then just blend that all together with the magenta. The magenta pencil seems to give it a little bit of vibrancy, which I like a lot. Okay, so you can see the difference. It's more a difference in richness really from this side to this side over here. But that's a good starting point. There we go. I'm fairly happy with that so far. It has enough variation from what's going on up here that it doesn't look too samey, but it's still very much in keeping, which is what I was hoping for. So just to finish up the canvas part, we're going to look at these flowers again, use that term loosely in this case. And I want to jump to this marigold and cadmium yellow. We are still going to use a little bit of the magenta, and that's just to give us a little bit of variation in what we're doing. So I'm going to start with, I've just realised I've missed another bit here. Oh my goodness, you think I would be better at this by now? There we go. Yeah, so I just want to pick out a few petals and assign them a colour, so yellow or orange in this case. And I don't want to be precious about this. I'm not trying to make this into some sort of regimented doofy bob, so not being too careful, not that bothered. And grabbing the orange here, so that is the marigold. I say orange, I mean marigold. It's just really to tell the difference between the yellow and the... Okay, so thinking about placement then, I just want to add in more of the same colour in the darker, or what we've deemed to be the darker areas of each of these areas of the shoe. So we're not doing anything complicated, we're literally using the same pencil here. And it gives you a chance to kind of like play about with which colours you want in what areas, if that makes sense. Yes, that makes sense. I had to think about that there for a minute. I say we're going to do a little bit of adjustment and whatnot in a bit. So let's do the same with the marigold now. Missed one there as well. Okay, let's make that one orange. Okay. Alright, so for these remaining petals then, I'm going to put down a layer of the cadmium yellow, and then I am going to go over the top with the magenta. So I'm just going to alternate those layers, and it should give us a sort of brownish colour. And these don't have to be even either. I mean, you think about autumn leaves turning, you know, maybe you want a bit of texture in there. It's entirely up to you. The main thing I think is to keep the warmth of the picture. I mean, really you could choose any colours you want, but if you stick to warm colours, you're always going to get that, you know, that same sort of feeling from it, and that's kind of what I wanted. I do want warmth on both sides of these images, but this is just autumn warmth, because that's different, you know. Maybe even pop a little bit of that magenta on that side too. Right, so let's add the finishing touches to the shoe just to finish up. So we're going to bring in some more pencils now. So I want to bring in this Payne's Grey here, just as a shadow pencil. And I'm also reintroducing the Leaf Green Deep, which was one of the colours that we used on the shoelaces. So what I want to do is, in the areas of the shoe that I think should be white, which are the shell toe and the sides of the sole here, and the eyelets and maybe part of the tongue, For this piping, I've decided that it should be green because that'll tie in with the laces, and it looks as if the laces actually belong to the shoe and they weren't just put there to be used as a lantern garland. So I just want to stick that in first. So being selective about where this goes, but I do think that it belongs here, and it will give us a nice little extra pop of colour, but also round the edge of the sole here and probably this middle line as well. I am cautious that I don't want too much white in the image, because the problem with colouring pages is even if you add a bit of shading and things, it still kind of makes it look a bit unfinished, and we don't want to do all that work for it to look unfinished. So we'll add this in. I was just watching my petals there, or my leaves, whichever way you want to look at it, because that should technically be coloured in. There we go. Yeah, I'm much happier with that. It feels a bit more cohesive. I just felt that with that, deciding if that was going to be piping that was white, it just kind of felt a bit, I don't know, unfinished maybe? It's such a tiny detail as well, like it's really not going to make any difference to the final finished piece, just a preference. See, especially since a lot of this sole is going to be white, so I think that that's a good shout. Again, that's going to be quite dark, so we can use our Payne's Grey to just sort of tone that down a little bit if that's what we want to do, which maybe we'll do. Need to sharpen this up. That's a teeny weeny thing, thin little line there. Oh yeah, that was a good point. Look at that bad boy. Yes. Do you like a good pointy point? And I think I want to continue this on round the tongue as well. I haven't actually spoken about the tongue yet. Let me just add in this little line here. I'm really sorry if you can hear the background noise. It is incredibly stormy here. It's getting a bit hairy now. It was to get worse as the day went on, but I'm just not sure how much the mic's picking that up. I'm pretty sure if you would have heard it, you'd have heard the rain battering earlier on, but I might have edited that out by now. Okay, great. Anywho's, I think for the tongue, what we will do is we will have the green round here, and then we can maybe alternate these sections between our cadmium yellow and our marigold. And again, that would make it quite sort of uniform. And I'm thinking in terms of this actually being a shoe at one point in its life, you know, if I was designing a shoe that had these colours, I think I would want some of them mirrored elsewhere if I had the option. Although I don't know, I feel like I could have made that just one colour. That's just me though. I'll get this orange colour in. The good old marigold. Orange is probably my least favourite colour overall, but as far as oranges go, I quite like this one. It's not quite as offensive as some of the other oranges you get. Okay, final stretch now. I've got the Payne's Grey pencil, and just starting down here, I want to think about making this shoe just look as if it's not the white of the paper. That is the sole intention. Oh wow, it's taken me all the way to the end of the video to get a good pun in. Standards are slipping. Yeah, so the Payne's Grey in this set is fairly innocuous. It's you know, it's not overly in your face sort of thing. It's quite subtle, so we can use that to our advantage. And again, with the texture that's been left here, entirely up to yourself how much you want to lean into that. I'm kind of just running the pencil over the paper to make it look a bit less white, you know, a bit less stark. And I'll probably just pop that there, but without, you know, really going ham on it. And maybe bring it really, like with a really light hand, maybe just bring that grey up a wee bitty more around that toe area, and just sort of build on the hatching that's there to show the contour. So again, this isn't really instructional, or this is about how much you feel it should have and what you think's right for your aesthetic or your other colour choices or whatever. As I say, I just like to make it known that I have actually put some pencil to paper in these areas and I haven't just left it out of laziness. It's like, I promise I did it. So yeah, I think I'm quite happy with that. Round at the heel here, I might make this a bit more bit more prominent. There's quite a bit going on here as well, though. There's quite a lot of stuff happening on the back here. Okay, great. So in terms of the green piping, I was going to start, you know, putting in some shadow areas. Honestly, it's such a tiny area, I don't feel like I need to bother too much. I think the hatching more or less does it for me. There's a couple of areas though down here. And maybe in at these lace areas, but again the hatching's kind of doing it for me, so that's not too bad. In terms of the tongue of the shoe, and maybe just put a little bit of that over the top of there. Again, it's like it's almost too pristine and I don't really want it to be, so maybe just add in a little bit of along that top line there. Okay, yeah, that's better. Okay, guys. And there we have it. We have a shoe. How exciting. Coming along nicely now. So hopefully you'll have been watching this video while I am away. Enjoying myself for a wee while. You can expect to see the next one on Saturday. So it's going to follow straight on from this one. I should be back for the live stream, which would obviously be a week today. And we'll carry on with that. So next time when we come back, I want to sort of tidy up the peripheral bits. So the ground, this strange signpost that's here, this little hut on the top, and maybe the shutters, we'll see how we go for time. Just so that I've got this as like the final piece to do, because we're going to be talking about light sources and stuff again. So I'm kind of trying to keep that section as one unit. So we'll try and get round the rest in the next video. That's it for today, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for coming and hanging out. I'm really pleased to be back in here. I've been having a bit of colouring withdrawal this last little while because it's been a stretch since we last did this. So I hope you've had enjoyment out of this too. And I will see you back here in the cave for the next part. So have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye for now.